boy Akademiks, and check it out. So Kanye West puts out the follow-up to Yeezus, okay? And everybody has known my opinion on Yeezus. It was a weed plate, a dud, okay? It's obviously was a frisbee. And to be honest, it was just a headache in audio format. I didn't say all the tracks were whack. Some of the tracks I actually liked, but with 10 tracks on an album, if we have a bunch of subpar and just straight up unlistenable shit, the entire project is whack, okay? Some people say, well, we got to give him credit. He tried different things. He tried different genres. He mixed them together. And yes, Kanye might have ran over the mountain and took all the arrows from the people over there, but that doesn't give him extra credit. Not in music. You got to be sonically there. Harmonically, you got to be in the mix. And also, if we're going to be thinking about rap, lyrically, you got to be somewhere decent, right? So that's just my opinion. So Yeezus, garbage, okay? Opinion hasn't changed even after like 3 years. Now, we're on to TLOP, because Kanye West drops TLOP, The Life of Pablo. No, it's not Pablo Escobar. He's not binging on Netflix Narcos, okay? It's actually Pablo Picasso, and you could imagine why it's Picasso. He compares himself to Steve Jobs. He compares himself to Michael Jackson, Walt Disney, and he thinks he's an artistic motherfucker, right? So Picasso makes sense. Now, the release of the actual project was fucking atrocious. First of all, apparently we don't even have the final version yet. They're saying that this week there's going to be another version put out because, quote-unquote, Kanye is a perfectionist. Now, to me, I see a big problem with that. If you're a fucking perfectionist, don't set an album release date if you're going to put out an incomplete or imperfect, actually, project. Put it out when it's complete because we're going to judge it. But we're not going to wait till whenever he puts out this final project. We're judging it on what we got so far. Okay? Now, the release was horrible because it's only available on Tidal, right? He said it's not going to be on Apple Music, not Spotify. It won't be on iTunes. It's only going to be available on Tidal. Now, with that in mind, people had a hard time getting it. Some people were forced to get Tidal. And Billboard can't basically track it. They're like, listen, the integrity of the numbers, we don't even know what the fuck you guys are doing. We can't even count this shit, so it won't even chart. Now, that's good and that's bad. It's bad in the sense that we won't have a real look at what Kanye was going to do. Number two, it is good, though, because we get to focus on just the quality of the project. So let's get into it. And you guys will real quickly see how I feel about this particular project. Some people really like it, some people really hate it, but this is what I think. Track number one, we got a track called Ultralight Beams. To me, this track really emotionally pulls at you. It's a great intro, in my opinion. And if you're one of those people that listen to an album where you listen to like track 5, then you go to track 15, you go to track 10, and because you've been bumping track 9 in the whip, you go back to track 9. Now, it ain't gonna work. Okay, this particular album, you got to listen sequentially. Listen from 1 all the way to the end. Okay, and number 1 is Ultralight Beams. It pulls at you emotionally. If you've been following his Twitter rants and the mad ramblings of a goddamn like just schizophrenic on Twitter, you would probably say, Kanye, what the fuck you mean this is a gospel album, as he stated before? But if you listen to track 1, you get the obvious gospel influences, okay? First of all, you hear Kelly Price, you hear Kirk Franklin, they're doing their thing. You hear even Kanye, even the goddamn sample they used, which was ironically an Instagram track, if you didn't know. The first thing you hear is an Instagram loop being actually sampled. Good job, Kanye, by the way, or whoever found it. And you hear Kelly Price, Kirk Franklin, and it's really soulful. And it kind of brings you back like, listen, we're off Yeezus. We're on to better times, okay? And also, you got to give a big shout out to Chance the Rapper. He was fucking amazing. I thought he stole the track, even after we heard so many good things before you heard Kelly Price. I'm like, oh, man, she's killing it. But then you hear Chance the Rapper, and he's spitting, man, and you're like, oh, wow. It's not even spitting. It's kind of like he's giving spoken word, but he's kind of delivering a scripture. I love it. This track is something you have to play every Sunday during Black History Month. I love it. I have no complaints about Ultralight Beams. Now let's move on. Father Stretch My Hands. To me, it's an amazing track. I mean, I'm kind of mostly surprised that this was produced because we do hear Metro Boomin want some more, right? We've been used to or accustomed to Metro Boomin and Future, producing the same kind of pattern beat, but here's definitely different. Obviously, Kanye probably brought him in like, nigga, we don't want to hear that shit. Just put this down and we're going to flip it, okay? And obviously, Ye flipped it, right? Now, let me tell you this. And by the way, there was 3 producers on the track, so you can imagine it's all like a mixed effort. That's Kanye in general, right? But to me, this track was amazing. Lyrically, and you'll hear me say this a bunch, lyrically wasn't the highest quality, right? So if you're expecting Kanye lyrically to wow you, you're probably not going to hear it often on this album, okay? But sonically and musically, you probably will be pleased by this goddamn album, because I don't want to hear Kanye West rapping about like bleaching assholes and shit like that. But I actually do like this track. This track is very dope. Okay, now track 3 is a part 2 of Father Stretch My Hands. It's also amazing. We get introduced to Designer, and literally, okay, if you're wondering who Designer is, because I did a story on him, Designer is basically Baby Future fast forwarded 18 years in the future. Okay, no pun intended. Actually, pun intended. Okay, because Designer sounds like Future. Exactly like Future. To keep it real, he sounds like a Future that sips a 0-calorie lean alternative. He looks like Iman Shumpert, but surprisingly, and this is the crazy thing about it, he kicked the most lyrical Future verse of the year. But it's definitely a dope track. By the way, the track that sampled or the Designer verse really came from Designer's own track called Panda. Okay, now track 4. Okay, coming off the last collaboration I remember with Ye, I was thinking something more along the lines of All of the Lights, but still Rihanna did a thing here. It wasn't All of the Light-esque, but of course All the Lights, she was allowed to kind of get into it and show her vocal talent, or at least kind of work her vocal cords out a little bit. Okay, this one was a little bit more withstrained. And, I mean, you'll see, again, the lyrics to me a little bit subpar. I mean, there's a bunch of shock value lyrics, which might distract you because you hear raps about Taylor Swift, and you hear Ye basically stunting on all his exes. And I'll definitely say, as a Jamaican and somebody who likes dancehall music, the Sister Nancy sample towards the end of the track definitely fulfilled the musical and sonical criteria for me. And, of course, he brought in other genres, which brings me back to my main point. I know I'm all a minute, but listen, it's a lot to say. But Kanye West showed that you could incorporate other genres while still sounding good. So, as I said, the lyrics on this particular joint aren't like amazing, but everything, when it combines into a harmonious culmination, it actually sounds pretty good. Okay? Now, as I said, man, this time it felt more cohesive. He didn't sacrifice overall quality like he did with Yeezus. Okay? Now, track 5 reminds me something more of like College Dropout. Okay? And by the way, let me see, what is track 5? Track 5 is Feedback. Track 5 reminds me a little bit more of College Dropout Late Registration Graduation Series. Felt like one of those Wake Up Mr. West tracks. Okay? By the way, rest in peace to Bernie Mac. I thought it was a dope track. He had a couple one-liners in there that I like. He had the Name One Genius That Ain't Crazy. I thought that was dope. Okay, Lowlights. Once again, it brings back the gospel aspect to the album. It's a testimony. It's an interlude as well. And it serves the purpose of maintaining the mood, direction, and feel of the album. I thought it was well placed. All right? Now, track 7 is a track that is called Highlights. And when I first heard that Kanye and Young Thug were going to have a track together, I expected a verse or maybe even type of a Locks type of thing where they're trading bars back and forth. But Young Thug was only used on this particular track for a hook. And honestly, it was good. I mean, Ye has done before in like All the Lights where he used a lot of people who are creative, but he'll use them as like backing vocals or something like that, or use them for ad-lib or hooks. And I mean, as far as the overall track, we hear some raps about Ray J, some about Black China and Rob. We also hear some about Dream. I thought it was a good track in general. Again, the lyrics are kind of still basic. Okay, but he's bringing everything together, and that's why you can't put Kanye in a lyricist box. He's just kind of like a musician that his job is to make shit sound good. That's why I was so disappointed with Yeezus. And back to this, I'm actually giving him a pass and saying good job because your lyrics aren't that dope, but the song sounds pretty good. Okay? Now, track 8, Freestyle 4. Again, once again, Kanye comes in, right, and he pretty much masks his lyrical inferiority that he's been displaying for the first 7 tracks or whatever with this weird engineering effect. And I mean, Designer, Baby Future, Grown Up, is the highlight of the track. I mean, he's spitting another dope Future verse. And I mean, we go on to track 9, and that's I Love Kanye, which to me is simply a jingle. I mean, we don't hear it in the beat. He's just kind of going, I love Kanye, oh Kanye, blah blah Kanye. Okay, now if you're a Kanye West disciple, you probably love this because it sounds like he's doing something dope, but it's nothing more than a jingle. It's really an extended interlude. I really consider this as an interlude, okay, and I don't really see any type of freestyle ability more than just something that's kind of catchy. Okay, now going to number 10, that's called Waves. Here's the thing about Waves for me, right? I heard from Kanye himself, he said Waves was holding up the album because Chance the Rapper said it was needed on the album. So when I first heard, I said, oh shit, this got to be something iconic. Instead, I heard the same old auto-tuned Breezy. Okay, he sounded like a fucking drowning goat. I mean, I love you, Chris Brown, and everybody know I fuck with Bruce Breezy, okay? But I mean, I heard the oscillating synths in the background, the Jamaican sound system drop, turn it up, okay? I mean, if you follow these two collaborations before, like when they collaborated, this was a very underwhelming comparison to like a song like Down. If you never heard that song, please go listen. Chris Brown, Kanye West, Down, I thought that was amazing. But when it comes to this one, I was expecting iconic because of the delay. Instead, I got decent to okay. All right. He has some lines as in like the sun don't shine in the shade, birds don't fly in a cage. And to me, it wasn't enough to save this track from being considered just average. I think the album could have went without this track, actually. All right. Now, track 11, FML. Before you guys actually think I'm a person who hates when Kanye West takes a minimalist approach to lyrics or rhymes or even the beat, right? This particular song does kind of all of that. And to me, this track is fucking dope. FML is dope. I mean, the piano in the background, Kanye West rhymes, the meaning, I loved it. I followed along with them like, all right, go ahead, yay. The hook was dope. Now I'll ignore what he said about the I'm willing to give up all the women before I lose all what I own, because I do think it's low-key simping, but he does love his wife, Kim K, so much that it definitely doesn't apply anymore. He's married. And of course, The Weeknd comes in. I'm telling you, man, The Weeknd is always just hit. He's never missed on a feature for me. Okay? The Weeknd came in, great hook, great song, even the intro with Kanye West using that auto-tuner vocoder. And I know I criticized it before, actually with Chris Brown, but I'll tell you here, Kanye West did do his thing. So, good track, okay? Now, Real Friends was a dope track. We heard this before the album came out. It was introspective, meaningful. Ty Dolla $ign, he was great. And I mean, as Kanye West referred to on I Love Kanye about the quote-unquote old Kanye, if you missed the old Kanye, you got him here. Simply amazing. Everybody, in my opinion, could relate to this track, at least if you've lived a bit, because this track I felt was a response to a lot of people within Kanye West's life who has been kind of getting at him or making statements, i.e. Rhymefest, right? Who said that Kanye West is a little bit out there, he needs help, and mentally he's sick. He's kind of telling them all like, listen, I wasn't feeling y'all vibe, I'm straight. Okay, also he mentions about this cousin who stole his goddamn laptop, right? And it does remind me that niggas ain't shit. Right? What I tell y'all, right? Niggas will steal your shit, then turn around and help you to look for it. Now, Kanye West has mentioned this guy, by the way, about 3 times. So this whole ass nigga who stole Kanye West's laptop, Kanye ain't over it yet. Now, track 13, we get Wolves. Now, we've heard several versions of this. It's a bit weird how it starts out and also the background sound. I mean, it kind of sounds like an actual wolf howling, right? But I believe it's a wind instrument. I mean, the lyrics are a little bit repetitive, but Kanye was trying to make it up with the vibe, and I think it's a decent to good song, but nothing like amazing, all right? I mean, I hear some people talk about like, yo, Wolves, it's so crazy. No, it's a good song. It's a good song. I'm not even gonna say, it's not whack. But it's not something you're like, wow, it just kind of stops your floors you, okay? Now, track 14, that's the Silver Surfer intermission. We do get that after Kanye was trying to name the album Waves, Wiz Khalifa, Chase and Cash, and those guys, they got at Kanye. And because the internet reaction was like, listen, Waves is a Max B thing, he had to get Max B for the interlude. Shout out to Max B, the free Max B campaign, still going on, okay? Now, track 15. We get 30 Hours, which I thought this was such a dope track, man. I believe he released a version of it before the album went out. And to me, man, I thought it was dope. It went from an organized verse to some type of like freestyle at the end, and that's pretty much the new part of the track. And it seems kind of like just random, but like it's also just so authentic because we hear mess ups. He's literally seeming like he's taking his time to try to freestyle. He also shouts out or keeps referring to 3 Stacks. I'm not sure if he's talking about Andre 3000, maybe a producer named 3 Stacks, but knowing Kanye, he could be talking about 3 Stacks, and it did sound like 3 Stacks vocals were layered in that like last like hook that we kept hearing. But 30 Hours is such a dope track, and I think it's one of the reasons that remind people why Kanye West is Kanye West. Now, track 16, No More Parties in LA, and I know you guys heard me say this before, right? That Kanye West, he has been lacking lyrically, but this track he actually steps it up. Okay, after hearing after hearing Kendrick flame this track on the first half, I was thinking, oh man, this nigga Kanye about to come in on some swag rap shit, but he actually goes the fuck in. He mentions the dude that stole his laptop again, turbo thoughts. He talking about his Maybach getting matted out, his therapist, and no more texting and driving. I believe he even mentions like his family and stuff like that. So it's dope. Now, track 17, Facts. Now, this track is one that I'm not a fan of. Okay, now, Facts to me, or at least the original version, was hella whack, right? I mean, this Charlie Heat version is an improvement, but it makes it decent. So this track isn't whack, it's just decent to me because of the alteration that he made. But I'm just not a fan of a Nike diss track. He could have sent them a fucking email with all the shit he was rapping about. To me, this was a weak iteration and a weak use of the Drake and Future's Jumpman flow. I think Kanye West just wasn't at home using that flow. And I know some people have pointed out that this track is so factually correct or factually accurate, which makes you get over the other stuff. But again, this is music, okay? Listen, he could rap about all the facts in the world. If the shit don't sound good, it don't sound good. And for this one, with the remixed beat or instrumental, it sounds average. All right. Now, track 18 is Fade. I've heard this instrumental for a while. It's been floating around. We kind of knew he was going to use this. To me, this track is amazing. And I know a lot of people probably say, yo, you're one of those Kanye fans that you're stuck on when he was doing soul beats and now he's moving on. You can't like keep up, so you want him to get back on the old stuff. That's probably what you thought when you heard the Yeezus review, but that's not the case. This track is more like a house type of up-tempo type of vibe, and I love it. I fucking love it. Okay, I mean, the sample, the drums, the tempo, I mean, the Kanye, he mixed himself so well into the track, and just hearing this in the car, you got to hear this at a party or in the car. It doesn't do it justice if you listen to it just in your earbuds. It won't, I'm telling you, okay? And I'm telling you, this track is probably one of the top 5, if not top 3. Okay, I'll just say top 5. Top 5 tracks on the album, okay? Now, with that being said, we're at the end of the particular project, okay? Now, we don't have sales to talk about again, but it's definitely a big improvement from Yeezus. Yeezus was garbage. What do I think this album is? I believe that this album is a solid 4.35, okay? And the only reason why it didn't get a 4.5 from me, because to me a 4.5 is where we're talking about a possible classic. Okay, and I'm not saying this can't be a classic if it grows on you over time, but when you talk about critically acclaimed, right, that's where I think about that 4.5 range, maybe even 4.4 if it's kind of inching up. And I remember I rated To Pimp a Butterfly 4.5, I believe, somewhere around there. But Kanye West is getting a 4.35, and the reason why I took away some points is really not because of the music, because I pretty much love every track on here. It's really because of the lyricism. I feel like Kanye West was very simplistic with everything he was saying, and maybe you excuse him for that by saying, oh, no, I understood him, or, oh, no, he was just trying to make a point. No, I think it was very simplistic in everything he said, and basically he really wasn't that clever or even tried to make a good effort at being someone who would spit. The rhymes are just too elementary for me to say it's a critically acclaimed album, but it's definitely better than Yeezus. It's better than Yeezus. Now, if you're asking me in comparison to what we've been getting recently from everybody, to me this is the best album of the year. We're only 2 months into the year, about to be 3, but it's the best album I've heard in a while. Okay, and that counts all the future releases. That counts going back last year to about like mid last year. So I'd probably say for like the last 9 months, or maybe not 9 months, I'll say 6 months, this is probably the best album I've heard. And it's shocking because I still have an uncomfortability with the lack of some at least more complex lyricism. I felt it was just way too basic, other than 1 or 2 tracks. So you guys get in the comment box. I'm giving this a 4.35. Actually, that's pretty dope, right? You guys let me know what your rating is. Some of you guys might disagree. Some of you guys might agree. Or some of you guys might say, yo, this should be a album that's rated 5 out of 5, or maybe you think that it should be rated 0 out of 5. Now, let me say this. Some people say I should start rating out of 10. Just multiply it by 2. Whatever I say, multiply it by 2. 4.35 is basically 8.7. So an 87 out of 100, that's my rating for Kanye West TLOP. Get a comment box, make sure you guys like, definitely subscribe. I enjoy this album. I'm still playing it. And while I might not bump it in whip, I will still keep playing it because I think it's dope. It's your boy Akademiks. Get in the comment box, make sure you guys like, definitely subscribe. I'm out.